I cannot even begin to estimate the number of times that I've heard the reading from Luke that we heard today about the nativity of our Lord. A beautiful reading, a beautiful scene, either in our manger or on the screen. A very sentimental, a very serene, and a very peaceful scene. We see a loving mother looking at devotion at her newborn son lying on straw. A father, Joseph, watching over his wife and his little child. And we see the shepherds there kneeling before the Christ child, very peaceful. We see the animals gathered around, adoring. When we look at that picture, it's almost like being wrapped in swaddling clothes of comfort and peace and warmth. It's something that we want, something that we desire, that very peace that the angel proclaimed. And when I look at that, I also think back, however, on my own child growing up. And one of my responsibilities was putting the manger scene under the tree. And I can remember over the years that manger tree became very warm. I remember I had a shepherd who had his head glued on, a little bit crooked. I had an angel with one missing wing and a broken wing. I had a three-legged cow, a one-eared sheep, and I had an angel also not with a golden halo, but with a halo made out of a paper clip stuck in her head. A very different world. And a very different world in reality. Because you can imagine what the stable smelled like with the cows and the sheep in there all night long. You can imagine what the smell of the shepherds was like, because they had the smell of the sheep. You can imagine the mother not knowing what was going to happen to her life, a husband worried about how he was going to provide for his family. And so the reality was not the shining bright things that we kind of imagine and like to have, but rather there was the brilliance and the glory and the radiance of a God who came to love and embrace all of the people within his arms, within his mercy, and within his love. That was the image that I believe was under my tree. A God who chose to show up for us. A God who chose to show up, at least from my experience, for all the broken people in our world. For all those families who are struggling in tumult and sometimes in distress, trying to figure out how they're going to make ends meet, how they're going to pay their bills, how they're going to raise their children, what their children are going to become, and not knowing how that is all going to happen. I think of all the people on the streets who are suffering, all the people who are hungry and homeless. And one of the things our Lord did is our Lord didn't come at the center of the world. The Lord came at the fringes of the world, at the edges of the world, at the margins of the world, for all of those people who somehow might not have had a place to sleep. And then it reminds me that for any one of us, we're not far from not having room in the inn for any of us. And so as we celebrate the Feast of Christmas this year, we're reminded that our God absolutely never gives up on any one of us. Never gives up on trying to somehow come into our lives, come into our hearts, to transform our lives, to bring that love and to make that love part of us. There's enough realism in our world today. Just turn on the news. Turn on the internet, watch the television, read the newspaper. And the realism of our world is certainly different from that scene and that scene. But we have the possibility of making the world a different place, of creating a much better scene in our world. The way we have to do that, and I remind our teachers and I remind our faculty all the time, we have to be able to look at devotion at our children. We have to look with devotion at each other. We have to look at this with the same devotion that God looks at us, that our Blessed Mother looks at her child. And if we look at each other with that devotion and that love, then what we do is we reach out and somehow we're able to bring about a redemption of the world. After all, God came to redeem the world. He didn't come to rehabilitate it. He didn't come just to paste us back together and glue us back together. The Lord came to create us new and to make us new and to make the world a new place and a better place and a stronger place and a more faithful place. And so hopefully we will find ourselves this Christmas wrapped in the swaddling clothes of love, of peace, and justice. And that during this coming year, I pray that each of you will find yourselves and your families in the loving arms of a loving God.